I never thought I'd find myself in this kind of mess, but here I am, writing this out because I honestly don't know what else to do. My name's Dave, and I was married to Lisa for almost 10 years. We had a pretty normal life on the outside, nice house, decent jobs, 2 kids. But as the years went on, I started noticing little things that didn't add up. She'd be more distant, more bitchy, snapping at me over nothing. Little lies here and there, nothing huge, but enough to make me suspicious. Still, I told myself she was just stressed or tired or whatever. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Things really started feeling off about 6 months ago when I lost my brother. His death hit me hard, and I decided I needed some help, so I started seeing a grief counselor, a guy named Mark. That whole period was a mess, dealing with grief, trying to hold everything together. Lisa was supportive at first, but I noticed she was attending the same family support sessions at the therapy center. I was told she was there with a friend, but I could tell she was lying about who she was with. She'd get defensive if I asked too many questions, say I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, but I knew better. There was something she wasn't telling me. Then one day I started noticing her phone was more locked down than usual. She'd hide it after she used it, always kept it on silent. I'd catch her texting late at night, quick messages, then deleting them fast. That's when I started snooping a little, nothing destructive, just enough to see what was going on. I found some strange messages from a number I didn't recognize. At first, I thought maybe it was someone she met at work, but the tone was different, intimate, flirty. She'd call the person babe, and there were references to meeting up, secret plans, even talk of sex. It hit me like a punch in the stomach. I wasn't stupid. I knew what I was looking at. My wife, who always acted like she was so much better than everyone else, was cheating on me with her grief counselor. The same guy I trusted to help me through losing my brother. It was so messed up. How could she do that? During the support sessions, no. Less, I remembered her bitchy attitude, how she'd snap at me when I asked about the sessions, how she'd lie about where she was going. I guess she thought she could get away with it, that I'd never find out. But I wasn't going to be that guy. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't want to do it right away. I needed to think, to plan what I was going to say. That night, I waited until she was asleep, then I looked through her phone again, this time for longer. I found even more proof, text messages, photos she'd sent, even a few explicit ones. She was really doing this. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. How could she throw everything away like this? We had our problems, sure, but I never thought she'd cheat on me with someone I trusted, let alone her grief counselor. Next morning, I woke up feeling empty, but I knew I had to face her. I wanted to ask her straight out, but I also knew I had to be prepared for whatever lies she'd spit out. She's always been a good liar, bitchy, manipulative, full of excuses. I could see her trying to deny everything, saying I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that she was just helping Mark with her own grief, that there was nothing going on, but I wasn't buying it. I had the evidence, and I was ready to put an end to her lies. I just didn't know how she'd react, or how I'd hold myself together when she finally faced me. That day, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. The tension between us had become unbearable, and I knew I had to get this out in the open, no matter how ugly it might get. I called her out during breakfast, just blurted it out, all the evidence I had. I told her I knew about her and Mark, the messages, the photos, everything. Her reaction was instant. She looked at me with this icy glare, her eyes narrowing, and then she just started spinning her usual lies. "Oh, come on, Dave," she sneered. "You really think I'd cheat on you? You're losing your mind. You're probably just jealous because I've been talking to someone who actually listens, unlike you. You're so wrapped up in your grief that you can't see what's real anymore." She said it so casually, like she didn't care that I just laid bare her affair. That bitchy tone, that dismissiveness, it made my blood boil. I could see she was trying to manipulate me, to make me doubt myself, but I wasn't buying it. I pressed her harder, demanding she admit everything. That's when she threw in her typical line, "You're just jealous, or maybe you're the one messing around, huh? Maybe you're the one seeing other women and trying to cover your tracks." She always had a way of turning things around, making me feel like I was the one in the wrong. It was her defense mechanism, her way of avoiding responsibility. But this time I wasn't buying her bullshit. I told her I had proof screenshots, her own messages, and I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. She scoffed and rolled her eyes. "Fine," she said. "If you want to believe that, go ahead, but you're overreacting as usual. This is just your grief talking. Mark's just a counselor. There's nothing going on besides that." I could see her trying to convince herself as much as me that she was innocent, but I knew better. I could see the flicker of guilt behind her eyes, the way she fidgeted, the way she avoided my gaze. The whole thing was a disaster unfolding right in front of me. I felt numb, furious, betrayed all at once. I didn't even know what I wanted anymore. Did I want her to lie her way out of it? Did I want to believe her? Or did I want to tear her apart and walk away? My mind was spinning, trying to process what I'd just uncovered. I could see her face, so bitchy and dismissive, like she thought she was untouchable. But I knew she was lying, and I knew that this wasn't going to just blow over. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the confrontation, the way she looked at me with that condescending smirk. Every time I thought about her cheating, it felt like my chest was tightening, like I was drowning. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all these signs? How could she do this to me, to us, to our family? The woman I'd trusted for so long, who I thought loved me, was now just a stranger hiding a secret. Affair, her bitchy attitude, the lies, the sneaking around. It all made me realize I never really knew her at all. And deep down, I knew that this was just the beginning of what would be a long, ugly road ahead. The next few days were a blur of anger, sadness, and trying to keep things from spiraling completely out of control. I spent most of my time at work pretending everything was normal, but inside, I was ripping apart. Every little thing she said or did now seemed like a lie or a sign of her guilt. She acted like nothing had changed, smiling, making her bitchy comments, throwing her usual insults at me when I pressed her about where she'd been or who she was with. But I saw through it. I saw her trying to act innocent, like she had all the power, like she could just lie her way out of this mess. One morning, I came home early from work, driven by a need to find out more, to catch her in the act if I could. That's when I saw her. She was rushing out of the house looking flushed, her hair a mess, clutching her purse like she was hiding something. I followed her at a distance, my heart pounding. She went straight to Mark's office, the counselor's office at the center. I waited outside, pretending to be on my phone, but I was listening hard, trying to catch any sound or conversation that could confirm what I already knew. Minutes felt like hours before she came out, hurriedly adjusting her coat. I stepped forward and blocked her path. "Who were you with?" I asked, my voice low but firm. She blinked at me, then scoffed, trying to brush past. "Just some friends," she said with that bitchy sneer. "Not your business." But I wasn't buying it. I could see her trying to hide her guilt, and I knew she'd been with Mark again. She couldn't lie her way out of this one, not anymore. I told her I knew everything, about the affair, about the secret meetings, the sex, the lies, and asked her what the hell she thought she was doing. She tried to deny it, to spin some story about how she was just counseling Mark for her grief, that it was all innocent, that she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt our family. But I was beyond listening to her bullshit. I told her I was done, that I couldn't trust her anymore, that I wasn't going to stay in a marriage built on lies and betrayal. That's when she got really bitchy, raising her voice, insulting me, saying I was overreacting, that I was just jealous and insecure. It was then that I lost my temper. I told her she could take her lies and her affair and shove them where the sun doesn't shine, that I was done being played for a fool. I said I'd have the papers drawn up if she wanted to keep lying to herself, but I was done with her. I wanted her out of the house immediately. She looked at me with that venomous smirk, like she thought she'd won somehow, but I knew she hadn't. She was just trying to save her own ass, to cling to whatever little control she had left. That night, I packed a bag and left. Not just for a night. She knew I was serious. I couldn't stay in that house with her anymore. It felt like I was living in some nightmare I could wake up from. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, those messages, the sex they'd had, the lies she'd told. I felt so betrayed, so stupid for not seeing it sooner. I kept asking myself, how did I not notice? How did I let this woman tear me down like this? It's like my entire world shifted on its axis. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, robbed of my trust, and left with nothing but a hollow, aching loneliness I didn't know how to fix. I knew I needed to figure out what to do next, but honestly I was just overwhelmed. All I wanted was to crawl out of my skin, to forget everything, but I knew that wasn't an option. The fallout from this was just beginning. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I stayed with a friend for a while, trying to process everything, trying to make sense of how Lisa, the woman I loved, had been betraying me right under my nose. I kept replaying the moments, the signs I ignored, the little details that now seemed glaringly obvious. The texts, her bitchy attitude, the secret meetings with Mark, everything. It felt like I'd been living in a fog, and suddenly the truth hit me like a ton of bricks. In that fog, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. I knew I had to fight back, not just for my own dignity, but for my kids' sake too. I started looking into my legal options, talking to a lawyer, and planning how I was going to approach the divorce. I also knew I needed to do something about Mark. The guy was a professional counselor, for God's sake, supposed to help people deal with grief. Instead, he was out there fucking my wife during her sessions, probably laughing at how gullible she was, or maybe just enjoying the power he had over her. I couldn't believe that someone like Mark, who was supposed to be helping people, was actually the one causing the destruction in my family. It made me sick. I wanted to confront him, but I knew that wouldn't do any good. Whatever I said or did, he was probably just too arrogant to care. So instead, I decided to do something smarter, something to hurt him where it counts. I started gathering evidence of their relationship, screenshots, messages, phone logs. I wanted to make sure I had everything, just in case I needed to take legal action or expose him publicly. Meanwhile, Lisa kept pretending everything was fine, acting like I was overreacting or that I was just bitter. She'd still send me those bitchy texts, trying to guilt me into taking her back, but I refused. I felt nothing but contempt for her now. Every time she'd lie and deny, I'd see right through her. I knew she was good at it, but I'd seen enough of her lies to know she was just trying to save herself. She'd say things like, "I didn't mean for this to happen," or "It's just sex, it doesn't mean anything," but I didn't buy a word of it. The sex, the affair, it meant everything to me. It shattered the little trust I had left. I started to realize that my feelings were all over the place: anger, sadness, disgust, even a little bit of relief. Relief because I finally knew the truth. No more wondering, no more second-guessing. But deep down it hurt like hell. I'd given her everything, my time, my love, my trust, and she threw it all away for some asshole who was supposed to be helping her deal with grief. That realization made me sick. I felt like I'd been duped, used, played for a fool. I told myself I wasn't going to let her control my emotions anymore. I was going to take back my life one step at a time. I knew I couldn't fix what she broke, but I could at least move forward. I'd see the divorce through, get full custody of the kids, and rebuild from the ashes. I started making plans, talking to a therapist myself, figuring out how I'd explain everything to my kids without destroying them. I wanted to be the strong parent, the one they could look up to, even if inside I was crumbling. That's when I realized that the worst part wasn't the betrayal itself, though that cut deep. It was the sense that I'd been so blindsided. I'd trusted her, believed in us, and she'd betrayed me during the most vulnerable time of my life. The grief I was feeling for my brother, which had initially brought us closer, had somehow turned into this dark, twisted thing that tore us apart. I did know if I'd ever fully recover from this, but I knew I had to try. For me, for my kids, and for whatever shred of dignity I had left. By now I'd made up my mind. The marriage was over, I knew that much. The betrayal ran too deep and the pain was too fresh. Every time I thought about her, how she lied, cheated, and used my grief to hide her affair, I felt like I was drowning again. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I'd uncovered her lies and I had proof. Now I had leverage. I wasn't going to let her blame me or spin her way out of this one. I started working with my lawyer, drafting up divorce papers. I also planned what I was going to say to her when I finally confronted her with everything. I knew she'd try to manipulate me again, call me jealous, insecure, or crazy. That's her usual fallback, but I wasn't going to fall for it. I prepared myself mentally, knowing I had the upper hand now, with the evidence to back me up. One afternoon, I decided I'd had enough of her bitchy attitude and her lies. I arranged to meet her at our house, not to make a scene but to have a calm, direct conversation. When she arrived, she looked smug, like she thought she could talk her way out of it. I didn't give her that chance. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots, the messages, the photos. I told her I knew everything from her affair with Mark to the sex they'd had during our supposed support sessions. Her face changed then, first from smug to panic, then to angry. "You have no right," she spat. "You're just jealous. This isn't what it looks like. You're blowing things out of proportion. I was just trying to get help after your brother died. Mark was there for me. We didn't do anything wrong." But I cut her off. "That's bullshit. You lied to me for months. You cheated on me during the support sessions I trusted you to attend. You used my grief as an excuse to hide your affair. And Mark, he's just a damn opportunist who's been screwing around with his patient. I've got the proof. I'm done. I'm filing for divorce, and I want you out of my house." She started screaming, calling me an asshole, a jealous prick, saying I was ruining everything because I couldn't handle her getting help. She even tried to turn the tables, crying that I was the one who'd been distant, who'd been cheating myself, just to muddy the waters. But I wasn't buying any of it anymore. I was done being manipulated. That day marked the end of any hope I had left for reconciliation. I knew I couldn't trust her again, not after all the lies, the sex, the betrayal. I felt a mix of relief and heartbreak. Relief because I finally had clarity, and heartbreak because I'd lost the woman I once loved. But I also felt stronger. I realized I was capable of standing up for myself, even if it hurt. I was finally taking control of my life. The aftermath wasn't easy. Dealing with the divorce, the custody arrangements, the emotional fallout, it all hit hard. But I knew I had to do it. For myself, for my kids, and for the few pieces of dignity I still clung to. I kept reminding myself that I'd survived the biggest betrayal of my life, and that I'd come out the other side. Maybe battered, but not broken. Not yet. And I was determined to rebuild everything from scratch. In the weeks that followed, life became a strange mix of relief and chaos. The divorce was finalized, and I moved out of the house, into a small apartment nearby. The kids stayed with me most of the time, and I threw myself into making sure they felt loved and secure, even if I was still trying to sort out my own shattered trust. I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of loss, not just for what I thought we had, but also for the betrayal that had nearly broken me. Still, I also felt a strange sense of liberation, knowing I'd finally taken control of my life. Lisa, of course, didn't take it well. She tried to contact me repeatedly, begging for a second chance, claiming she'd changed, that it was all a mistake. But I saw through her. The bitchiness, the lies, her manipulative attitude, it was all still there. I knew I couldn't trust her again, not after everything. Her excuses sounded hollow. I didn't want her to get a second shot at destroying what little remained of my peace. I'd learned my lesson the hard way. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's almost impossible to fix. The hardest part was watching the kids struggle with everything. They were too young to fully understand what had happened, but they could see the tension, hear the arguments, and sense the sadness that hovered over us. I promised myself I'd shield them from the worst of it, and I did my best to stay strong for their sake. Every night I'd hold them close and tell them how much I loved them, how much better things would be. I wanted to be the father they deserved, strong, honest, and present. Looking back, I've learned a lot from this nightmare. I've learned that trust can be shattered in an instant, that the people we think are supposed to love us might betray us the worst, and that sometimes the only way to survive is to cut the poison out completely. I've also learned that I'm stronger than I thought, strong enough to walk away from someone who's hurt me deeply, and to rebuild a new life from scratch. If I could give any advice to someone going through something similar, it would be this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the small signs, because they tend to grow into something much worse if you let them. When you find out the truth, don't second-guess yourself. Confront it head-on, gather your evidence, and don't be afraid to walk away. Because in the end, no matter how much it hurts, staying in a toxic, broken marriage is never worth your peace of mind. You're better off alone than in a relationship built on lies and betrayal. And as hard as it is to accept, Sometimes the only way forward is to start over.